On the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
The NBA season is underway, and a lot of interesting storylines are already developing so far in the month of October. For more on the NBA, we go right out to the Progressive guest line. We bring on the host of the NBA Baseline podcast, our guy, Jabari Davis, who joins us now. Jabari, Jake Asman here in Houston. Always appreciate your time, my friend. How are you?
Oh, truly my pleasure, Jake. I appreciate you having me again.
Absolutely. So I got to start with my Knicks, Jabari, because it's been rare in the last 20-something years that the Knicks actually are in the news for the right reasons. What do you make of New York's 4-1 start to the year, and what have you made of just how they have played so far on the floor?
So here's the thing. I was positive about them coming into the year. I would be dishonest if I said, oh, yeah, they're going to be the leaders of the pack. And, we'll see if it continues, but I'm very optimistic about them. I looked at them last year, and I know a lot of people said, like, oh, well, maybe it was kind of a flash in the pan, or, can you get Julius Randle to duplicate what he did? And I kind of saw it from the other side of things. It's like, okay, you already have established that Julius can be a very good piece and part of an excellent core. They went out and they did what they needed to do. I liked bringing in Fournier. I liked bringing Kemba back home. Now, obviously, health is going to play a role there, but as of right now, things are going very well for him. And honestly, for Knicks fans, I'm very happy to see it.
I appreciate that. So it's interesting because you watched this team the other night. They go into Chicago and they play poorly in the last 3 minutes, but they find the way to squeak out that win. But Julius Randle only has to score 13 points, and they find a way to win. If this was the Knicks of last year and Julius only scores 13 points, they likely get blown out. So when you look at just the depth this team has and just the offensive firepower they have, do you think they could potentially be even better than where they were last year?
I absolutely do, and because we can go directly to the point. Last year in the postseason, when it got tough, all of a sudden it was Julius, and he was looking for somebody. I don't think you're going to have that problem. Not only with the individuals that I mentioned earlier, but the fact that the leap that a lot of people, at least for whatever reason, expected from R.J. Barrett last year, I think it comes this year. I think it comes after playing for Thibodeau for a year, settling in. He's already shown elite range on the defensive end. Once the offense settles in, I honestly think that these Knicks can be, very formidable.
Talking with Jabari Davis here, the host of the NBA's Baseline podcast at Jabari Davis NBA is where you can follow him on Twitter. Looking at the rest of this NBA conference so far, just overall, I mean, you look at some of the stories away from the floor. Ben Simmons, to me, still remains one of the biggest stories in all of sports. What have been your thoughts on how that situation's played out and just how the Sixers have looked without him so far?
Yeah, it feels like they're going to be in a holding pattern, just like several other teams, until the situation is dealt with. I know I give credit to the players; they're going out there and competing. So of course, you're going to look. Philly's going to be good. They're not going to be great until we see what happens. That's really that's really the long and short of it. Joel Embiid, if he can remain healthy, heading into the year, a lot of folks thought he was going to be an MVP candidate. Now all of a sudden you start hearing murmurings about his knee. I don't know what to think of that. If I'm Philly, I'm probably a little bit more concerned about that than I am even with the Ben Simmons situation.
Do you think ultimately he's traded this season, or do you think this is something that really drags out this entire year?
I heard the comments from Morey, and I understand. They are absolutely in the driver's seat in terms of they could let it drag out, but the second part of of that acknowledgement was him stating, Joel Embiid is in his prime. I just don't see how you can acknowledge that and then still let this drag out. I'm not saying that they're going to trade him for pennies on the dollar, because of course you don't want to necessarily do that, but sooner or later you're going to have to move forward.
Looking at some of the records early on in the year, I mean, what do you make of a team like Chicago off to a 4-1 start in the East? Looking at Washington 4-1, Charlotte 4-2. Do you think any of those teams are for real and maybe could be better than what people think?
I was high on Chicago coming in. I drank all the Kool-Aid when it came to them coming in. In fact, when I saw the line, I can't remember right now if it was 42.5 or 43.5. But when I saw that, I said, "Oh, I'm smashing the over on that 100%." So there's no shock there. Look, the team that I'm pleasantly surprised by is the Washington Wizards. I know that Wizards fans are going to say, "Well, of course they are." Look, I didn't know what to expect. I recognize that they brought in new talent. I'm very optimistic, especially if we can get a healthy year from Spencer Dinwiddie. The one thing that I'm going to give them credit for it, and I guess for whatever reason, I foolishly did not realize it, even though they had a lot of roster turnover, bringing in the package that they brought from the Lakers, specifically guys that have played together for years, guys that not only have played together, but have won together. That actually brought in some continuity there, as crazy as that might sound. So, look, I don't know if it's going to continue in terms of the clip that they're at right now, but I'm willing to acknowledge, no, this is a better team than I anticipated heading in.
Jabari Davis joining us here talking NBA with him. How about the Brooklyn Nets, Jabari? We've heard James Harden talk about some of the different ways the league is officiating him now and how he needs to get his legs underneath him. He had a big game last night to help the Nets get a win. But you look at this team, any concern with the Nets, especially without Kyrie Irving still because he's not getting vaccinated?
Yeah, look, if Kyrie Irving's not there, the Nets are in the pack. If Kyrie Irving's there, they have the potential to lead the pack. But the truth of the matter is the world beaters that, honestly, admittedly, I even thought that they were going to be heading into the year, now acknowledging that was when I thought Kyrie was going to be a part of the Nets.
Right.
That's not necessarily what they are right now. I'm intrigued to see how the league actually continues to officiate James Harden because while, yes, I will acknowledge it definitely seemed like they wanted to make a point in those first couple games. If you're going to turn around and give them 19 free throws, on a given night, I still think that he can be highly effective. But in terms of the Brooklyn Nets in the East, like I said, I think they're a part of the mix. I do not think that they're leading the mix.
If they don't have Kyrie Irving, are they good enough to win a championship, though? Or do you think they will not be able to get it done because losing, one of the top 10 players in the league just might be too much for them?
I'm never going to say that a team led by Kevin Durant and James Harden, once he's honestly, in shape and has made the adjustments, I'm never going to say that that's not a possibility. They can certainly still win. But the overwhelming advantage that they had, with Kyrie, if he's not there, well, then obviously, there's simply no guarantees. I'm dancing around it. I'll say this. I don't think they win without Kyrie. But then again, even if he comes back, unless it just worked out and synced up perfectly, I still don't even think they're going to win.
Real quick, just what have been your thoughts on the way these games have been officiated? Harden's talked about it. I heard Trae Young come out the other day and he complained about it. Do you think it's good for the league that they're taking away, some of the ways these guys would get those ticky-tack fouls in the past?
Absolutely. And this is the thing. I'm not one of those fans that, oh my God, I just hate everything about the league. I love the league. I love scores. I love the players. I appreciate, guys getting their numbers. But let's be real. It had gotten ridiculous.
Yep.
It really had. The foul hunting, the searching, the flailing, the flopping, all of that. That does not make for a good product. The fans don't like it. The other players, the other competitors that are playing against it, they don't like it either. So I understand that it appears to be a harsh, switch, but it kind of needs to happen. It's like, just rip the Band-Aid off, get them to adjust. And honestly, those are all world players. They will make the adjustment.
It's not real basketball, right? I mean, like you watch basketball for the guy's skill level. You don't want to watch them just like bulldoze into guys just to draw contact. I mean, I lived here in Houston for 3+ years. I watched a lot of James Harden in person and up close. I mean, look, we all know he could score, but some of the ways he'd get fouled, it's not fun to watch. It really isn't.
Yeah, like I said, leaning into it is one thing. Embellishing a little bit is something that they've always done, but the hooking of the arms and all of that stuff, that was where it lost me. That was where I was like, no, we have jumped the shark and something needs to be done. And I'm glad the NBA is doing something about it.
Jabari Davis with us here, host of the NBA Baseline podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Jabari Davis NBA. Jabari, how about the Lakers start to the year? It's been up and down. Obviously, they're trying to, work in so many new veteran players to the lineup. What have been your thoughts on what you've seen so far from the Lakers?
Well, outside of what is always guaranteed to be an overreaction from fans, it's kind of what is expected. You have that much roster turnover. You not only just have that much roster turnover, but you bring in a guy like Russ, and this is the thing. I've always been a Russ fan. I've always appreciated him. Southern California guy. I think that's always been there. But we can at least acknowledge, even at his peak, it was a difficult fit or a fit that you had to make. Now that he's declined a bit, even if he's still effective, it's absolutely going to be a fit. And the other side of this is, it's always been difficult, even though LeBron has always been fantastic at what he does and he's been the system, it's always been difficult to fit around him. So you have these two forces coming together. It's expected that it doesn't look great. More than anything, the funniest part of it, and it is very early, offensively, people are saying, like, how are they going to make it fit offensively? That's not even necessarily the problem. In fact, at last check, I think the Lakers are in the top 10, from an offensive perspective, offensive efficiency perspective. They're actually the defensive end that's going to be the problem. So, look, a lot of faith went into Frank Vogel heading into the year, and he's done a fantastic job in years past at generating an organic defense, even if the players don't necessarily look like they would wind up being a quality defense. He has absolutely got his work cut out for him with this group.
Is Westbrook capable of adapting his game to play with LeBron, or is this going to be something we're talking about really all season long?
It's honestly, my answer is yes to both. Yeah, I do think he's capable of it, but I think we're going to be talking about it no matter what. Because this is the thing. This is the thing with Westbrook. When it looks good, we're going to, folks are going to acknowledge it, even if it's begrudgingly. And when it looks bad, they are absolutely going to dance on that grave. So the one thing with this Lakers group is no matter how it goes, it will be the topic of discussion.
How about the Warriors, Jabari? A lot of talk about the return of Klay Thompson coming up for this team. We know how good Steph Curry has been and what he did last year. He honestly, I thought, could have got some MVP votes for how well he played given the circumstances. Do you think Golden State is back to being a legitimate title contender out west?
If Klay Thompson is even a semblance of himself, he doesn't have to be Klay of 2016 to 2017. He doesn't have to be 37 points in a quarter necessarily, or especially right off the bat. But if he can even be be a part of what that was, this team feels special. Now, again, not picking them outright to come out the West. But there is no chance in the world, if this team stays healthy, that they're not going to be in the playoffs. I'm not even talking about a play-in situation. This is going to be a tough out. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. And obviously with Klay, we have no idea what to anticipate. But part of me feels like especially when they bumped up that that return date. Part of me feels like they know that they see it and they recognize hey. They took the risk of getting the band back together, and this might be whether it's their last chance or their best last chance, this might be it. So I'm expecting positive things for them over the course of this season.
Jabari, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us, my friend. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy all the basketball being played this weekend. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Jabari Davis joining us there. Check out his podcast, the NBA Baseline Podcast. He does an excellent job covering all things NBA, and I like to have him on when the Knicks are playing well because, well, it's not often I've been able to have a guest on since I've been doing this show over the last 3 years and change where the Knicks are actually in the news for the right reasons. But they're off to a 4-1 start, and Brendan Riley, I want you to know, if the NBA season were to end today, the New York Knicks would be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm just saying, number 1 seed out in the East. We'll take a quick break and wrap up hour 1 of 3. This is the Jake Asman Show coming at you coast to coast on Sports Map radio stations throughout the country. Stay tuned. We're coming right back.
Where are jobs in radio given out? They're not given out on a